All right, hey guys, welcome in. So, I wanted to revisit a video, a topic that we discussed earlier this year, and that is the NAR lawsuit and the settlement regarding buyer broker compensation. So, we did a video earlier this year, talked about what was going to happen, and most of those things are accurate, but I wanted to just revisit this and explain more from a consumer standpoint of what you can expect because these changes are taking place in the Columbus MLS and MLS is all across the country starting here in about 2.5 weeks. Um, so just going to recap what I talked about in that previous video and kind of elaborate a little bit. First and foremost, the thing that is changing for as it pertains to consumers is um, listing agents who list properties in the MLS will no longer be able to advertise an offer of buyer compensation. Instead, the buyer and their agent will negotiate that compensation on a purchase agreement. So we will you if you have a home to sell, you as a home seller will make an agreement with your listing agent about the compensation that you're going to pay them, and then once you receive a purchase contract from a buyer, if that buyer has a broker, a real estate agent that's representing them, they will request a commission from you on the purchase contract instead of us making an offer to them of what kind of compensation you might be willing to pay. So that's going to be the main difference for you as a home owner. Um, and I fully expect that we're going to see most contracts still receive a request for compensation to the buyer broker. However, if the buyer is unrepresented, then there might not be a compensation requested. And of course, this is how it has always been, but this is the entire point of these changes is to make sure that homeowners know and understand that they can negotiate that compensation. If the buyer broker requests a certain amount, the seller doesn't have to agree to that amount. Our recommendation as brokers at Ownerland Realty, our recommendation is going to be that you do cooperate in some form because we want to procure uh, the the most opportunities for you to sell the property and the best opportunities for you to sell the property. So we're still going to recommend that you do that, but it is totally up to the homeowner, the consumer, to decide what their comfort level is in offering something and or not offering something at all. Um, so that's the main change from a listing standpoint, from a home seller standpoint. From a home buyer standpoint, it's right along the same lines, only reversed. So the first thing from a home buyer standpoint is you will be required to have a buyer broker agreement with your real estate agent. Whether you want to see one house or work with that agent for 1 day or 1 year, you will have to have some sort of written agreement with that agent, which that was always a recommendation, but not often practiced by most agents. Now it's a requirement. Um, the second piece of that is again, you will be negotiating your agent and you will be negotiating for their agent's compensation. If the seller doesn't offer a compensation, then the buyer's agent would need to get compensated by the buyer. And on that buyer agreement would outline the duties of the agent along with the compensation that the buyer will pay the agent if the seller won't pay. Or sometimes, in some cases, maybe the seller will pay something and the buyer will pay something. So at this point, it's all negotiable. But the most important thing is to understand what your obligations are as a buyer buying a home. If you choose to work with an agent, obviously I recommend that you do, because it's there's so many intricacies of that process that the having an agent represent you is invaluable. Just understand what that agreement is, what the agent is going to do for you, and how they are going to be paid for doing that work. Those are the two key changes as it pertains to consumers. There's some forms and some documents, and of course, me as a manager of an office as well as an agent, I've kind of been heavy into talking with and advising other agents of how they need to operate, starting here in a few weeks. But from a consumer standpoint, those are the most important items. And realistically, my feeling is that we are still going to see most often a buyer compensation by the seller, or a request for compensation. And I think a lot of times the seller is going to cooperate with that request because they want to get the best deal for them. And that's going to be the best price, the best terms, working with a professional and a buyer who has somebody that can help them understand the process and get to a closing. And at the end of the day, what's most important in a transaction for the seller is um, obviously the customer service as it pertains to getting to that closing, but it's to getting the closing and getting the most money in a fast and efficient amount of time. So those are the core changes for you to be aware of as it pertains to the NAR compensation and the NAR lawsuit regarding buyer broker compensation. Hopefully this is helpful to you guys. I am excited to be out there helping you navigate this market, and I'm looking forward to talking to you soon. Thanks a lot for watching this video.